The story of the Hashira begins with a strange contradiction, because they are introduced as the strongest protectors humanity has, the final wall between ordinary people and demons. And yet, almost every one of them feels like someone who has already been broken by the world they are trying to protect. They stand at the top of the Demon Slayer course, wearing titles that sound almost mythic: flame, water, stone, wind, mist, love, serpent, sound, insect. And yet behind those titles are not legends carved cleanly from courage, but people shaped by loss, guilt, rage, loneliness, discipline, and the quiet need to give their pain a purpose. To understand the Hashira, it helps to first understand what they are standing against. For generations, demons have moved through the night, feeding on humans and leaving behind stories that most people would rather treat as rumor. A family disappears on a mountain road. A traveler never reaches the next town. A village whispers about something that only comes after sunset. And somewhere behind all of it is Muzan Kibutsuji, the first demon, the source of the curse, a creature who has survived for centuries by hiding inside human society while treating human lives as disposable. The Demon Slayer. Course exists outside official recognition, almost like a secret resistance that history never fully records. Its members do not fight for fame, and many ordinary people do not even know they exist. They train, bleed, and die in the dark, protecting a world that may never learn their names. Within that hidden organization, the Hashira are the highest-ranking swordsmen, the ones who have either defeated one of the 12 Kizuki or proven themselves through extraordinary skill and survival. But becoming a Hashira is not only about strength. It is about becoming reliable in a world where hesitation can cost entire families their lives. The word Hashira means pillar, and that meaning matters. A pillar does not exist for itself. It holds something else up. It takes weight. It remains standing, so the structure around it does not collapse. That is exactly what the Hashira are inside the Demon Slayer core. When ordinary slayers are overwhelmed, when a demon is too fast, too old, too cruel, or too unnatural, the Hashira are the ones called in. They are not simply elite fighters. They are the people everyone else depends on when the night becomes too heavy. But the sad truth is that pillars can crack. The Hashira are powerful, but they are not untouched by fear. In many ways, they are powerful because of what fear, grief, and responsibility have done to them. Each one carries a different answer to the same question. What does a person become after demons take something from them? Some become calm. Some become cruel. Some become gentle. Some become loud enough to drown out the past. Some turn their grief into discipline. Some turn it into poison. Some turn it into prayer. The first Hashira most viewers truly come to know is Giyu Tomioka, the Water Hashira, and his introduction sets the tone for what these figures really are. When Tanjiro returns home and finds his family slaughtered, with Nezuko transformed into a demon, Giyu appears not as a comforting hero, but as a cold and terrifying reality. He does not arrive to explain the world gently. He arrives with a blade drawn, prepared to kill Nezuko, because, in the world he understands, a demon is a demon, and hesitation is dangerous. At first, Giyu seems emotionless, almost harsh. He tells Tanjiro that crying will not bring his family back, and the words feel cruel because they come when Tanjiro is at his lowest. But beneath that coldness is something more complicated. Giyu is not speaking from indifference. He is speaking from experience. He knows that grief can freeze a person in place. And in the world of demon slayers, freezing means dying. His harshness is a warning, not because he lacks compassion, but because compassion alone cannot survive the night. And then, in the same scene, Giyu does something that quietly separates him from a simple executioner. He sees Nezuko protect Tanjiro. He sees Tanjiro throw himself forward with reckless determination. He sees something impossible enough to make him pause. Instead of killing Nezuko, he sends Tanjiro to Sakonji Urokodaki, giving both siblings a chance that most demon slayers never would have allowed. That single decision becomes one of the most important turning points in the story. The water Hashira, who seems cold at first glance, becomes the person who lets the story continue. Giyu's strength comes from water breathing, one of the foundational breathing styles, and everything about him reflects that element. Water can be calm, silent, and controlled, but it can also cut through stone over time. Giyu does not waste movement. He does not seek attention. His fighting style feels clean and restrained, as if emotion has been pushed deep below the surface. And yet, that restraint is not peace. It is a kind of survival. The deeper tragedy of Giyu is that he does not fully believe he deserves his place among the Hashira. Long before Tanjiro meets him, Giyu survived the final selection because of Sabito, a boy who protected others and died fighting demons while Giyu lived. That survival becomes a wound inside him. To the outside world, Giyu is the water Hashira. To himself, he is someone who was carried forward by another person's sacrifice. This is why he often seems distant from the other Hashira. It is not arrogance, it is shame. That makes his connection to Tanjiro more meaningful. Tanjiro, like Giyu, survives a tragedy that should have ended him. Tanjiro, like Giyu, carries the memory of people he could not save. But where Giyu turns inward, Tanjiro keeps reaching outward. He keeps asking for understanding, keeps believing in impossible exceptions, keeps holding on to Nezuko, even when the world tells him not to. In Tanjiro, Giyu sees something he may have lost in himself. Not innocence, exactly, but the courage to remain emotionally open after unbearable loss. The Hashira meeting later reveals how different these pillars truly are. When Tanjiro and Nezuko are brought before them, they do not respond as one unified mind. Some want immediate execution. Some are curious. Some are disgusted. Some are amused. Some are silent. And this is important, because the Hashira are not a perfect council of noble heroes. They are people shaped by different wounds, and their reactions to Nezuko reveal their histories before those histories are fully explained. Sanemi Shinazugawa, the wind Hashira, reacts with open hostility. Obanai Iguro, the serpent, Hashira, distrusts Tanjiro immediately. Shinobu Kocho smiles while speaking with unsettling calm. Mitsuri Kanroji reacts with emotion and sympathy. Gyomei Himejima weeps. Tengen Uzui treats the situation with theatrical judgment. Muichiro Tokito seems detached, almost absent. Kyojuro Rengoku speaks with firm certainty about duty. Each reaction is a small window into a different life. What makes this scene so effective is that the Hashira feel intimidating not only because of their strength, but because they represent the full weight of the Demon Slayer course. Tanjiro is not standing before ordinary warriors. He is standing before the people who have survived the worst the demon world can offer. To them, trusting a demon is not a sweet idea. It is a risk written in the blood of everyone they failed to protect. And yet, the story does not leave them frozen in that first impression. Slowly, one by one, the Hashira stop being distant symbols and become people. Their titles remain, but the humanity underneath begins to show. The water Hashira is not only water. The flame Hashira is not only flame. The stone Hashira is not only strength. Each pillar is carrying a private story, and each story reveals something different about what it costs to stand between humans and the dark. The story of the Hashira, then, is not simply the story of the strongest swordsman in Demon Slayer. It is the story of people who became pillars because something in their lives collapsed. People who learned to stand because someone else could not. People who turned memory into movement and grief into form. And as the world around Tanjiro grows wider and more dangerous, these figures begin to change from untouchable legends into something far more fragile, far more interesting, and far more human. Kyojuro. Rengoku enters the story like a flame before the viewer fully understands what that flame is burning for. Everything about him feels bright, direct, and almost impossible to ignore, from the sharp confidence in his voice to the bold shape of his hair, to the way he speaks, as if every word should be carried clearly into the world. At first, he can seem almost too simple, like a man made only of energy and certainty. But that first impression slowly gives way to something much deeper, because Rengoku's brightness is not carelessness. It is discipline. It is devotion. It is a choice he keeps making. Among the Hashira, Rengoku stands out because he does not hide behind mystery. Giyu feels distant. Shinobu smiles in a way that suggests something painful underneath. Obanai is guarded. Sanemi is hostile. Muichiro seems detached. And Gyomei feels almost too sorrowful to fully understand at first. Rengoku, by contrast, is open. He says what he believes. He praises effort. He respects determination. He looks at Tanjiro Zenitsu, and Inosuke not as weak children wasting his time, but as young swordsmen with potential. And that alone makes him feel different from the colder parts of the Demon Slayer world. His title, the Flame Hashira, fits him almost perfectly. Fire is warmth, but it is also destruction. It can protect people from the cold, light the darkness, and gather others around it, but it can also burn itself out. Rengoku carries all of those meanings at once. He is inspiring because he gives warmth to the people around him, but there is always a quiet danger in how completely he gives himself to his duty. He does not seem like someone who is saving his strength for later. He feels like someone who is always ready to burn at full force. That quality comes from the Rengoku family itself. Flame breathing is not something Kyojuro simply discovered. It is a tradition passed down through generations, written into his family's identity. His father, Shinjuro Rengoku, was once the Flame Hashira before him. And that history gives Kyojuro's role a heavier feeling. He is not only fighting as himself, he is carrying a name, a style, and an expectation that existed before he was born. But the tragedy of the Rengoku family is that inheritance does not always come with comfort. Shinjuro, once strong and respected, eventually falls into bitterness and despair. He becomes harsh, withdrawn, and dismissive, especially toward his own son. Instead of giving Kyojuro the encouragement one might expect from a former Hashira, he often tears him down, treating his efforts as meaningless. For someone weaker in spirit, that kind of rejection could have poisoned everything. It could have made him resentful. It could have made him cold. Kyojuro does not become cold. This is one of the most important things about him. He does not inherit his father's despair. He sees it, lives beside it, feels the pain of it, but refuses to let it define the way he treats others. In that sense, Rengoku's kindness is not naive. It is resistance. He knows what bitterness looks like. He knows what it can do to a person. And instead of passing that bitterness downward, he becomes the kind of person who lifts others up with almost startling sincerity. His mother, Ruka, shapes him in a different and perhaps even more important way. Before her death, she teaches him that those born strong have a duty to protect those who are not. This lesson becomes the core of Kyojuro's entire life. He does not see strength as something that makes him superior. He sees it as responsibility. If he can stand, then he must stand. If he can fight, then he must fight. If others are weaker, then his role is not to judge them, but to shield them. That belief is what makes the Mugen Train arc feel so powerful. The train itself is a strange and unsettling setting, a place of motion, sleep, and hidden danger. People are trapped without fully knowing they are trapped, carried forward through the night, while a demon manipulates their dreams. It is the perfect battlefield for Rengoku, because he is someone whose spirit does not drift easily into illusion. Even in a story filled with supernatural powers, his greatest strength is the steadiness of his heart. When Enmu traps the passengers in dreams, the danger is not only physical, it is emotional. Dreams tempt people with what they want most. For Tanjiro, the dream offers his lost family, alive and warm again. For others, the dream becomes a soft prison. This is one of the cruelest demon abilities, because it does not attack with pain at first. It attacks with comfort. It offers escape from grief, and then punishes the person for wanting it. Rengoku's presence in this arc gives the younger Slayers something solid to hold on to. Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke are still growing, still learning what it means to face demons beyond ordinary missions. Rengoku shows them what a Hashira looks like in motion, not just in strength, but in composure. He makes quick decisions. He protects passengers. He treats the mission as something sacred, because every sleeping person on that train is a life placed under his care. And then Akaza arrives. The sudden appearance of an upper-rank demon changes the entire feeling of the night. Enmu was dangerous, but Akaza is something else entirely. He is not a trickster hiding behind dreams. He is direct, overwhelming, and fascinated by strength. His offer to Rengoku is simple: become a demon, preserve your power, and continue growing forever. It is a temptation built specifically for warriors. No aging, no human limits, no death waiting at the end of effort. Rengoku refuses without hesitation. That refusal reveals the heart of his character. He does not reject Akaza because he thinks death is easy. He rejects him because mortality is part of what makes human life meaningful. Humans are fragile. They age. They weaken. They die. But because their time is limited, their choices matter. Their courage matters. Their love matters. Rengoku understands this completely, and that is why Akaza cannot reach him. Their battle is one of the clearest expressions of what separates demons from the Hashira. Akaza sees strength as something to preserve forever. Rengoku sees strength as something to spend for others. Akaza wants endless improvement. Rengoku wants to protect the people behind him before sunrise. One is fighting for eternity. The other is fighting for a single night. And somehow, that makes Rengoku's resolve feel even greater. By the end, Rengoku does not win in the simple way. Battles are usually measured. He does not kill Akaza. He does not walk away unharmed. But he protects every passenger on the train. And in the world of Demon Slayer, that matters more than pride. His victory is not survival. His victory is that no one under his protection dies. For Tanjiro, this becomes a defining memory. Rengoku's death is not only a loss, it is a lesson burned into him. He sees what it means for a Hashira to give everything without regret, to turn duty into action until the very last breath. And even after Rengoku is gone, the warmth of his presence remains, not as a soft comfort, but as a command to keep moving. That is why Kyojuro Rengoku's story stays with people. He is not complicated in the way some characters are complicated. His depth comes from how completely he lives by one clear belief. The strong protect the weak. The flame burns so others can see. And even when it disappears, the light it leaves behind continues moving through everyone who witnessed it. Shinobu Kocho is introduced with a smile that feels calm at first. But the longer she remains on screen, the more that smile begins to feel like a mask. Among the Hashira, she is one of the most unusual because she does not overwhelm the story with raw physical strength. She is small, graceful, light on her feet, and almost gentle in the way she speaks. But that gentleness is never simple. It floats above something much darker, like a beautiful insect resting on the surface of poison. As the insect Hashira, Shinobu immediately breaks the idea of what a pillar has to look like. She cannot cut off a demon's head in the same way the others can. In a world where decapitation is the main method of killing demons, that seems like an impossible weakness. But Shinobu turns that weakness into a completely different kind of strength. Instead of overpowering demons with brute force, she kills them with wisteria poison, using speed, precision, and medical knowledge to make every strike count. This makes her fighting style feel almost delicate, but also deeply unsettling. Her sword is thin and needle-like, not built for heavy slashing, but for piercing. She moves like a butterfly, light and elegant, while delivering poison into the body of the demon. It is a perfect reflection of her character. She appears soft, but her softness hides something lethal. She does not fight like a storm or a flame. She fights like something beautiful that should not be touched. Her connection to butterflies also carries quiet meaning. Butterflies suggest beauty, transformation, and fragility. But they are also brief creatures, living delicate lives that can disappear quickly. That symbolism fits Shinobu and her sister, Kanai, whose influence still lives inside everything Shinobu does. Kanae believed demons should be pitied, that some of them might deserve compassion, because they were once human. She carried a gentler dream, one that imagined a world where demons and humans might somehow coexist. Shinobu inherits that dream, but not cleanly. After Kanae is killed by the upper-rank demon Doma, Shinobu's kindness becomes tangled with rage. She continues smiling. She continues speaking softly. She even tells demons that she wants to be friends with them. But the viewer can feel the contradiction underneath. Her words sound gentle, yet they are often filled with quiet cruelty. She is imitating her sister's compassion while carrying a hatred so intense that it has nowhere peaceful to go. That is what makes Shinobu so interesting. She is not simply kind, and she is not simply vengeful. She is someone trying to live inside the shape of the person she loved, even though her own heart has become something sharper. Her smile is partly an act of remembrance, partly a method of control, and partly a way to keep herself from showing the anger that might consume her if she ever fully let it out. Her role at the Butterfly Mansion shows another side of her. Away from battle, she becomes a healer, a caretaker, and a trainer. Injured slayers recover under her watch. Kanao grows under her influence. Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke are repaired there after being pushed beyond their limits. The mansion feels softer than many other places in the Demon Slayer world, but even that softness exists because of pain. It is a place built for recovery because the world keeps breaking people. Kanao Tsuyuri's presence reveals Shinobu's quieter form of compassion. Kanao was once a child so damaged by abuse and neglect that she struggled to make decisions for herself. Shinobu and Kanai brought her into their home, giving her safety, structure, and a chance to become more than what her past had made her. Shinobu may speak sharply at times, but the life she helps create for Kanao shows that there is still real tenderness inside her, even if it has been buried beneath grief. Her connection with Tanjiro is also important because Tanjiro sees through people in a way that often unsettles them. He notices the scent of anger beneath Shinobu's smile, recognizing that her calmness is not the whole truth. This matters because most people are either charmed by Shinobu's politeness or intimidated by her position. Tanjiro senses the wound underneath. He does not fully understand it at first, but he understands that something inside her is hurting. The tragedy of Shinobu is that she knows her own limits very clearly. She knows she cannot defeat Doma in a normal fight. She knows hatred alone will not make her physically stronger than an upper-rank demon. So she turns herself into the weapon. Over time, she fills her own body with wisteria poison, creating a plan that requires her death to succeed. It is one of the most chilling choices made by any Hashira, because it shows how completely she has accepted the cost of revenge. And yet, her sacrifice is not empty. Shinobu's plan creates the opening that allows Kanao and Inosuke to finish Doma. Her death becomes part of a larger movement, one that combines intelligence, patience, and trust in those who will continue after her. In that way, Shinobu's strength is not only in her poison or speed, it is in preparation. She understands that victory may not belong entirely to her, and she is willing to become the hidden condition that makes it possible. Shinobu Kocho's story is quiet compared to some of the louder Hashira, but it stays with you because of how much is hidden beneath the surface. She smiles while grieving. She heals while planning revenge. She speaks gently while carrying poison in her blood. And like the insects she is named after, she seems delicate only until you understand how dangerous delicacy can become when it has learned to survive. Tengen Uzui arrives with the kind of presence that makes silence almost impossible. He is loud, dramatic, confident, and constantly speaking about flashiness, as if the entire world is a stage, and he refuses to step onto it quietly. At first, this can make him seem like the most carefree of the Hashira, someone who enjoys attention simply because it suits him. But like so many of the pillars, the surface tells only part of the truth. Tengen's flashiness is not just vanity. It is a rebellion against the kind of life he came from. Before becoming the sound Hashira, Tengen was raised as a shinobi. born into a family that treated children less like sons and more like tools. His upbringing was harsh, secretive, and built around obedience. In that world, individuality was not something to celebrate. It was something to crush if it interfered with the mission. A shinobi was expected to move in darkness, to kill without hesitation, and to accept loss as part of duty. Tengen learned survival in a place where emotion could be seen as weakness. That makes his personality much more meaningful. His bright clothes, jeweled headband, painted eye, and theatrical way of speaking are not random decoration. They are the opposite of the hidden life he was born into. Tengen makes himself visible because he came from a world that demanded invisibility. He calls things flashy because he refuses to live like a silent weapon. Every part of him seems to say that he is alive, that he has chosen his own way of existing, and that he will not disappear quietly into someone else's orders. His rejection of his family's values is one of the most important parts of his story. Tengen does not simply leave because he dislikes hardship. He leaves because he sees what that life does to people. His siblings are shaped by cruelty, and his father's beliefs reduce human life to usefulness. Tengen recognizes that if he stays, he may become the same kind of person. So he chooses a different path, even though leaving behind the only world he knew must have carried its own kind of pain. His 3 wives, Hinatsuru, Makio, and Suma, reveal the softer center beneath his confidence. Tengen does not treat them as disposable allies. He values their lives above the mission, which directly separates him from his shinobi upbringing. He tells them that their survival matters, that they should prioritize living, and that they are not tools to be thrown away. This is where his loudness becomes surprisingly tender. Under all the flash, Tengen's deepest belief is simple. People are worth more than duty. That belief is tested in the entertainment district, one of the most visually striking settings in Demon Slayer. On the surface, the district is bright, colorful, and full of noise. But underneath that beauty is something predatory. People vanish. Women are trapped. Demons hide behind elegance and performance. It is the perfect place for Tengen's story, because he is a man who understands both spectacle and concealment. He knows that something can shine beautifully while hiding rot underneath. The demons he faces there, Daki and Gyutaro, also reflect parts of the world he is trying to escape. They are siblings shaped by cruelty, poverty, and resentment, bound together by pain, until love and hatred become almost impossible to separate. Their bond is twisted, but it is still a bond. That makes the battle feel more personal than a simple fight between good and evil. Tengen is fighting demons who were also made by a brutal life, but who chose to drag their suffering outward and make others bleed for it. As the sound Hashira, Tengen's fighting style feels perfectly matched to his personality. Sound breathing is explosive, rhythmic, and forceful. He uses massive chained blades and turns combat into something almost musical, reading the rhythm of an enemy's attacks, and eventually forming a score in his mind. This idea is one of the most interesting parts of his ability. Tengen does not just hear sound. He interprets battle as rhythm, turning chaos into pattern. His fight against Gyutaro is brutal because it strips away the flashy surface. Tengen is poisoned, wounded, and pushed close to death. Yet he keeps moving. The battle becomes less about looking impressive and more about enduring long enough for everyone else to survive. That is when his true strength becomes clear. Flashiness is not just about appearance for him. It is about refusing to let fear, poison, pain, or despair make him small. What makes Tengen different from some of the other Hashira is that he gets to step away. After the battle, he retires from the front line, having lost an arm and an eye. In many stories, a warrior like him might chase death to prove devotion. But Tengen chooses life. He chooses to honor the people who fought beside him by continuing to exist, not by throwing himself into the next impossible battle. That decision fits him perfectly, because his entire journey has been about refusing to be used up like a tool. Tengen Uzui's story is not only about flashiness, sound, or spectacle. It is about a man who came from darkness and chose color. A man raised to disappear who chose to be seen. A man trained to treat people as expendable, who decided that survival mattered more than pride. Beneath all the noise, that is what makes him one of the most quietly human Hashira. Muichiro Tokito first appears as if part of him is somewhere else. While the other Hashira react strongly to Tanjiro and Nezuko, Muichiro seems distant, unfocused, almost weightless, staring into the sky as though the conversation in front of him is only half real. He does not feel cruel in the same direct way as Sanemi, or warm like Mitsuri, or commanding like Rengoku. Instead, he feels empty, not because there is nothing inside him, but because something important has been hidden away. As the Mist Hashira, Muichiro's title fits him before the story ever explains why. Mist blurs the world. It softens edges, hides shapes, and makes it difficult to tell what is close and what is far away. Muichiro carries that same atmosphere. His thoughts drift. His memories are clouded. His emotions seem delayed, like they are trying to reach him from a place he can no longer clearly see. Even his calmness does not feel peaceful at first. It feels like fog covering a wound. What makes Muichiro so unusual among the Hashira is his age and speed of growth. He becomes a Hashira after only a short time with the Demon Slayer course, which immediately tells us that his talent is almost unnatural. Most Slayers train for years and still never reach that level. Muichiro rises with frightening speed, as if his body remembers something his mind cannot. His gift is real, but it also creates distance between him and others. When someone is that talented, people can forget that they are still young, still vulnerable, still carrying pain they may not understand. His early personality reflects that distance. He can seem blunt, indifferent, even cold. He does not always speak with the sensitivity others expect, and he often treats situations with a practical detachment that feels harsh. But this is not because Muichiro lacks a heart. It is because his heart has been locked behind memory loss, trauma, and confusion. The person he appears to be is not the whole person. He is someone living after a break in himself, trying to function without all the pieces. His past reveals, why that break exists. Muichiro once lived with his twin brother, Yuichiro, after their parents died. Their home was isolated, quiet, and marked by grief. The brothers responded to loss in opposite ways. Muichiro retained a softer belief in helping others, while Yuichiro became bitter and protective, convinced that kindness only led to suffering. Yuichiro's harshness was not simple cruelty. It was fear. He had already lost too much, and he believed the safest way to survive was to shut the world out. That relationship gives Muichiro's story much of its sadness. The brothers loved each other, but grief made that love difficult to express. Yuichiro pushed Muichiro away, not because he truly hated him, but because he was terrified of losing him too. Muichiro wanted to believe in something beyond survival, while Yuichiro saw belief itself as dangerous. Between them was a quiet argument about what pain should do to a person. Should it make you close your hands or open them? Then a demon came. The attack that destroys Muichiro's old life is brutal, not only because of what happens, but because of when it happens. The brothers are still children, still trapped between resentment and love, still unable to fully say what they mean to each other. When Yuichiro is fatally wounded, the truth underneath his bitterness finally becomes clear. His anger was never the whole story. His final words and final feelings reveal that he cared deeply for Muichiro, that everything harsh in him had grown around love like a thorn-covered shell. Muichiro survives, but survival comes at a cost. The trauma is so overwhelming that his memories become buried. He enters the Demon Slayer Corps with a blankness around him, carrying skill without context, pain without a clear source, and anger without the memories that would explain it. This makes him one of the most quietly tragic Hashira, because he is not only fighting demons, he is also trying, without knowing it, to return to himself. His battle in the swordsmith village begins to clear that mist. At first, Muichiro acts with the same distant practicality he has shown before. He prioritizes efficiency. He does not immediately understand why saving one person might matter if the larger mission is at stake. But through Tanjiro's influence and through the pressure of the moment, something begins to stir. Tanjiro reminds him that helping others can eventually come back around, that kindness is not wasted just because it does not produce an immediate reward. For Muichiro, that idea reaches deeper than he expects, because it echoes the part of himself that existed before his memories vanished. The rescue of Kotetsu becomes especially important. Muichiro could have ignored him. He could have stayed focused only on the larger threat. Instead, he turns back. That choice may seem small compared to the scale of fighting upper-rank demons. But for Muichiro, it is enormous. It shows that the fog is beginning to thin. He is not merely acting as a perfect weapon of the core. He is choosing compassion again. When his memories return, they do not return gently. They come back with pain, with the image of his brother, with the truth of what he lost, and with the realization that his emptiness was never natural. It was something his mind created to survive. In that moment, Muichiro becomes more complete, but also more wounded, because remembering means feeling the full shape of grief again. Still, it gives him something he lacked before: direction. His fight against Gyoko shows the difference immediately. Once Muichiro awakens his demon slayer mark and regains his sense of self, his mist breathing becomes even more fitting. He uses confusion, speed, and obscured movement to overwhelm an upper-rank demon who is obsessed with his own artistic superiority. Gyoko sees himself as beautiful, refined, and special. But Muichiro cuts through that arrogance with almost quiet contempt. There is something satisfying about the fight, because Muichiro does not defeat him with loud rage. He defeats him with clarity. That clarity becomes the opposite of mist. It is the strange beauty of Muichiro's arc. He is the mist Hashira, but his story is about clearing the fog. He begins distant from himself and gradually returns. He begins as someone who seems almost hollow, then becomes someone deeply connected to memory, kindness, and inherited love. The mist does not disappear from his identity, but it changes meaning. It is no longer only confusion. It becomes his way of moving through the world, soft and unreadable on the outside, sharp and purposeful within. Muichiro's later role in the final battles carries even more weight because of this. He is still young, younger than almost everyone around him, yet he stands against ancient demons with the calm of someone who has already faced the emptiness inside himself. His courage does not come from never being afraid or never being hurt. It comes from remembering what matters after almost losing the ability to remember at all. And that is why Muichiro Tokito lingers in the story. He is not only a prodigy. He is not only the quiet boy with extraordinary talent. He is a child who lost his family, lost his memories, lost the shape of his own heart for a while, and still found his way back to kindness. His mist is not just a breathing style. It is the atmosphere of his life, the fog of grief, the blur of forgotten pain, and finally, the soft clearing that allows him to see the person he was always meant to become. Mitsuri Kanroji enters the story with a softness that can be easy to misunderstand. Among the Hashira, she does not carry the same cold distance as Giyu, the same sharp anger as Sanemi, or the same mysterious emptiness that first surrounds Muichiro. She is emotional, expressive, affectionate, and almost startlingly open in a world where most demon slayers survive by hardening themselves. At first glance, she may seem like the lightest of the Hashira, but the longer her story unfolds, the more it becomes clear that her gentleness is not a lack of depth. It is the part of herself she fought hardest to keep. As the love. Hashira, Mitsuri's title feels unusual beside titles like Stone, Wind, Flame, and Serpent. Love does not sound like a weapon. It does not sound like something that belongs on a battlefield filled with demons. But that is what makes her so memorable. Mitsuri's strength comes from a place that is deeply emotional, deeply human, and deeply tied to her desire to be accepted as she is. She does not fight because she wants to appear fearsome. She fights because her heart is too full to stand still while others suffer. Her body is one of the first things that sets her apart. Mitsuri is born with unusual muscle density, giving her incredible strength despite her soft appearance. As a child, this strength makes her different in ways she does not know how to explain. She eats more than others. She is physically powerful in a way that surprises people. Her hair changes color because of how much sakura mochi she eats, becoming the pink and green that later makes her instantly recognizable. These details sound almost whimsical, but inside her story, they carry a quieter sadness, because the things that make Mitsuri special also make her feel like someone the ordinary world does not know what to do with. Before becoming a demon slayer, Mitsuri tries to become someone more acceptable. She hides parts of herself. She dyes her hair black. She eats less. She acts more restrained, hoping that if she becomes smaller in spirit, easier to understand, and less unusual, she might be loved. This part of her life is painfully simple. She wants what many people want. She wants to belong without frightening anyone away. She wants someone to look at her and not treat her differences as flaws. But pretending to be ordinary slowly drains her. The tragedy is not dramatic in the way demon attacks are dramatic. It is quieter than that. It is the sadness of someone folding herself into a shape that was never meant for her, believing that love can only arrive if she becomes less honest. That is what makes her eventual transformation so meaningful. Mitsuri does not become powerful by abandoning softness. She becomes powerful by allowing her true self to exist without apology. Joining the Demon Slayer Corps gives her a strange kind of freedom. In ordinary society, her strength makes her seem frightening or unfeminine to some people. In the Corps, strength has purpose. Her appetite is not shameful if her body needs fuel. Her unusual muscles are not a problem if they help her protect others. Her emotions are not weakness if they keep her connected to the lives she is trying to save. The very things she was once pressured to hide become the reasons she can stand as a Hashira. Her breathing style reflects this beautifully. Love breathing is derived from flame breathing, which already connects her back to Rengoku, the Hashira who trained her. But Mitsuri's version becomes entirely her own. It is flexible, graceful, and unpredictable, built around her unique body and her whip-like Nichiren sword. Her blade is one of the strangest weapons in the series. Thin and bending, almost like a ribbon, requiring an extraordinary level of control. In another person's hands, it would be nearly impossible to use. In Mitsuri's hands, it becomes an extension of her movement, bright and flowing, dangerous without losing beauty. This is one of the most important things about Mitsuri. Her strength does not look like everyone else's strength. She does not have to become colder to be powerful. She does not have to become less emotional to be taken seriously. Her fighting style is vivid, expressive, and almost dance-like, but it is still deadly. The story allows her to be feminine, loving, and openly emotional, without turning those traits into weaknesses. If anything, those traits become part of what makes her strong. Her relationship with the other Hashira also shows how deeply she wants to connect. While some Hashira keep others at a distance, Mitsuri notices people warmly. She admires them. She reacts with sincerity. She is easily moved, sometimes flustered, sometimes overwhelmed, but rarely closed off. This makes her presence feel like a small pocket of warmth in a group shaped by trauma. The Hashira are all protectors, but Mitsuri is one of the few who openly radiates affection. Her bond with Obanai Iguro adds another layer to her story. Obanai is guarded, severe, and shaped by a deeply painful past, yet Mitsuri sees him with tenderness. Their connection is quiet compared to louder romances, but it carries a great deal of emotional weight because both of them are people who struggle, in different ways, with the idea of being worthy of love. Mitsuri fears being rejected for being too much, while Obanai fears he is too stained by his past to deserve happiness. In each other, they find a kind of recognition that neither fully knows how to hold. During the Swordsmith Village arc, Mitsuri's role becomes more than emotional support. She proves why she is a Hashira. Against powerful demons, her speed, flexibility, and strength allow her to protect others in moments where ordinary slayers would be overwhelmed almost instantly. And when her demon slayer mark awakens, it does not feel like a sudden change into someone else. It feels like the full force of who she already was rising to the surface. Her body, her heart, her will to protect, all of it burns brighter. What makes her courage especially moving is that she is not fearless in a cold, distant way. Mitsuri feels things intensely. She worries. She loves. She wants to live. She wants happiness. And still, she steps forward. That kind of bravery matters because it doesn't come from having nothing to lose. It comes from having many things to lose and choosing to fight anyway. Mitsuri Kanroji's story is not about becoming acceptable to the world. It is about finding a place where her real self can become a source of strength. She is powerful because she is different, not in spite of it. She is loving because she refused to let rejection turn her bitter. And among the Hashira, she stands as a reminder that a pillar does not always have to look severe or silent. Sometimes, a pillar can be bright, tender, emotional, and still strong enough to hold the weight of the night. Obanai Iguro is one of the Hashira who feels difficult to approach from the very beginning. He watches others with suspicion, speaks sharply, and carries himself with a coldness that makes him seem almost cruel at first. During the Hashira meeting, he is one of the quickest to distrust Tanjiro and Nezuko, and he does not hide his hostility behind politeness. Where Mitsuri feels open and warm, Obanai feels closed, tense, and full of judgment, like someone who learned long ago that softness was dangerous. As the serpent Hashira, everything about him feels narrow, coiled, and guarded. His mismatched eyes, his striped haori, the bandages covering his mouth, and the white snake wrapped around him all create the feeling of someone hiding more than he reveals. Even his breathing style reflects this. Serpent. Breathing is not broad and explosive like flame, or graceful and flowing like water. It twists, bends, and strikes from strange angles. It feels unpredictable, almost uncomfortable, as if the sword itself is moving like something alive. Obanai's snake, Kaburamaru, is one of the most important details about him. At first, it may seem like a simple design choice, a way to make the serpent Hashira look more memorable. But Kaburamaru is much more than decoration. The snake helps him read his surroundings, and later becomes especially important because of Obanai's limited vision. Their bond is quiet, but constant. In a life where Obanai struggles to trust people, Kaburamaru is always there, wrapped around him, like the one presence he can rely on, without question. The reason Obanai is so guarded comes from one of the darkest backstories among the Hashira. He was born into a family that worshipped a serpent demon, a family that survived by offering others as sacrifices and benefiting from the demon's cruelty. Instead of being raised with love, Obanai was treated like something valuable only because the demon took interest in him. He was kept in a cage, hidden away, and raised in a world where family did not mean safety. Family meant ownership. Family meant fear. His mouth was cut to resemble the serpent demon's, leaving him with a wound that became both physical and emotional. The bandages he wears are not just there to create mystery. They cover a violation, a memory of being shaped by someone else's cruelty. This makes his harshness easier to understand. Obanai's body carries proof of a childhood where he had no control, no freedom, and no kindness given without a price. He does not simply distrust demons because he is a demon slayer. He distrusts them because a demon was woven into the very beginning of his life. When he finally escapes, he does not escape cleanly. The demon kills nearly all of his family, and although those family members were cruel and complicit, Obanai is still left carrying guilt. This is one of the painful contradictions in his story. He was a victim, but he still feels stained by survival. He believes the blood of his family's sins clings to him, as if he must answer for the evil he was born into. That belief shapes the way he sees himself for most of his life. This is why Obanai's severity is not simple arrogance. He holds himself to a brutal standard because he feels unclean, unworthy, and responsible for something that began before he had any choice. He becomes a Hashira, not only to protect people, but almost to punish himself through duty. His discipline is intense because he does not allow himself the comfort of feeling innocent. In his own mind, he must keep proving that he is not the same as the people who raised him. His feelings for Mitsuri reveal a completely different side of him. With her, Obanai becomes softer, though rarely in an obvious way. He gives her small gifts. He worries about her. He notices her warmth and admires the very openness he cannot easily show in himself. Mitsuri represents something bright and accepting, something he feels drawn toward, but also unworthy of. He loves her, but that love is mixed with shame because he does not believe he deserves a future beside someone so kind. That quiet longing gives Obanai's story much of its emotional weight. He is not someone who lacks love. He is someone who does not believe he is allowed to receive it. The tragedy is that Mitsuri, who spent so much of her life wanting to be accepted as herself, might have accepted him more gently than he could accept himself. But Obanai's past stands between them like a shadow. He wants to be near her, yet he feels as though his very existence carries something polluted. In battle, Obanai's true strength becomes clearer. He is not physically overwhelming in the same way as Gyomei, and he does not have the raw, explosive presence of some of the others. But his precision is extraordinary. His blade curves in strange patterns, slipping through openings that would not exist for a more straightforward swordsman. Serpent breathing feels like a style built for someone who has spent his whole life surviving narrow spaces, someone who knows how to move through constraint and still strike. During the final battle against Muzan, Obanai becomes one of the most determined fighters on the field. Even while wounded, even while pushed beyond reasonable limits, he keeps fighting with a kind of desperate clarity. His body is damaged. His vision becomes unreliable. The situation becomes almost impossible. But he continues because the fight against Muzan is not just another mission. It is the chance to destroy the source of the evil that ruined countless lives, including his own. Kaburamaru's role in that battle is especially touching. When Obanai's sight is compromised, the snake helps guide him, allowing him to keep moving and striking. It is a small detail in the middle of a massive battle, but it says a lot. Obanai, who spent so much of his life feeling alone and unworthy, is not truly fighting alone. He is supported by the creature that stayed with him, the silent companion who understands him without needing words. His bond with Mitsuri reaches its most emotional point near the end. In their final moments together, the hardness around Obanai finally softens. The life he thought he could never have, the love he thought he did not deserve, comes close enough to name. He imagines a future where they might be reborn, where they might meet again without the stain of demons, family sins, and bloodshed between them. It is a heartbreaking wish because it shows how deeply he wanted an ordinary happiness. even if he could not believe in it during life. Obanai Iguro's story is one of shame, survival, and the painful distance between being loved and feeling worthy of love. He is severe because he was wounded. He is suspicious because trust was dangerous for him. He is harsh because he never learned how to be gentle with himself. And yet, beneath all of that, he remains someone who fought to protect a world he never felt clean enough to belong to. As the serpent Hashira, he twists through darkness with a blade like a living thing, carrying guilt, devotion, and a quiet love that only fully blooms when there is almost no time left to hold it. Sanemi Shinazugawa is introduced like a wound that learned how to speak. He is sharp, hostile, violent in his first impression, and almost impossible to soften with ordinary kindness. Among the Hashira, he is one of the most openly aggressive toward Tanjiro and Nezuko, and the moment he cuts his own arm to tempt Nezuko with blood, he makes it clear that his hatred of demons is not theoretical. It is personal. It is rooted so deep inside him that even his own body becomes part of the test. At first, Sanemi can seem cruel. His voice is harsh, his expression is wild, and his entire presence feels like a storm that refuses to calm down. But like most of the Hashira, what looks simple from a distance becomes more painful the closer you get. Sanemi is not angry, because anger is all he has. He is angry because anger became the only way he knew how to keep standing. His rage is armor, and unlike Rengoku's brightness or Mitsuri's warmth, Sanemi's protection looks like barbed wire. As the wind Hashira, his title fits him perfectly. Wind can be invisible, violent, restless, and impossible to hold. It cuts without being seen. It moves around obstacles. It does not settle easily. Sanemi fights with that same wild pressure, throwing himself forward with brutal speed and overwhelming force. Wind breathing feels aggressive in his hands, less like a graceful style and more like a constant assault, a storm of slashes that gives the enemy no quiet place to recover. But Sanemi's story begins long before he becomes a Hashira, in a home filled with fear. He grows up as one of several siblings in a family where his father is abusive, cruel, and violent. Even before demons enter his life, Sanemi already understands what it means for a child to live under threat. His mother, however, is gentle and hardworking, someone who tries to protect her children despite the suffering around them. For Sanemi and his younger brother Genya, family is not simple. It is both pain and love, danger and responsibility. Then the night comes that changes everything. Their mother is turned into a demon and attacks her own children, not because she wants to, but because the demon hunger has taken over her body. Sanemi is forced into the most impossible situation a child could face. To save what remains of his family, he has to fight the mother he loves. He has to kill the person who once protected him. This is the center of Sanemi's wound. He does not hate demons from a safe distance. He hates them because demonhood took someone gentle and turned her into the thing that destroyed his family. And even after he survives, the tragedy does not end cleanly. Genya sees the aftermath, and in grief and confusion, calls Sanemi a murderer. He does not understand what happened. He only sees his brother standing over their mother's body. That accusation breaks something between them. Sanemi loses nearly everything in one night, and the one brother who remains misunderstands him at the worst possible moment. From there, his path becomes harder and colder. He begins hunting demons without formal training, using his rare Marechi blood to lure them in, because his blood is especially tempting to demons. That detail says a lot about who Sanemi becomes. He weaponizes himself. He uses his own flesh, his own scent, his own body as bait. He survives by turning vulnerability into danger. His relationship with Genya is one of the saddest parts of his story, because it is built on love that cannot express itself properly. Sanemi acts as though he hates Genya's presence in the Demon Slayer course. He insults him, rejects him, and tries to push him away. But underneath the cruelty is fear. Sanemi does not want his brother to follow him into death. He wants Genya to live a normal life, to marry, to grow old, to become something untouched by the darkness that consumed their family. The problem is that Sanemi has no gentle way to say this. His love comes out as rejection because tenderness feels too dangerous. Genya, meanwhile, wants acknowledgement. He wants his brother to see him, to forgive him, to accept that he is also trying to fight. Their bond becomes painful because both brothers are reaching for each other, but through the wrong language. Genya reaches through effort and apology. Sanemi reaches through distance and harshness. Neither fully understands how little time they have. Sanemi's place among the Hashira reflects his brutal discipline. He is not polished in a soft way. He is scarred, intense, and constantly ready for violence. His body is covered in marks from battles survived, and those scars become part of his visual identity. They show that his life has been one long refusal to die. Every scar feels like a sentence in a story he would never bother telling out loud. During the Hashira Training Arc, Sanemi's harshness becomes almost overwhelming. His training is brutal, and his treatment of others can feel merciless. But from his perspective, softness gets people killed. He does not train others to feel encouraged. He trains them to survive the kind of battle where encouragement will not be enough. His methods are not always kind, but they come from someone who knows exactly how unforgiving demons are. His confrontation with Kokushibo reveals Sanemi at his most exposed, because the battle pushes him far beyond ordinary limits and brings him into direct contact with the kind of monster only the strongest can face. Kokushibo is ancient, refined, terrifyingly skilled, and connected to the deepest history of demon slayers and breathing styles. Against someone like that, Sanemi's wildness alone is not enough. He has to fight with everything he has. Beside Gyomei, Muichiro and Genya in one of the most devastating battles in the story. Genya's role in that fight makes it heartbreaking. He wants to stand beside his brother, and in the end, he does. He proves his courage, his devotion, and his love. But the cost is unbearable. When Genya dies, Sanemi's armor finally cracks. The brother he tried so desperately to keep away from battle is lost anyway. The future Sanemi wanted for him disappears. And all the harsh words, all the distance, all the protection disguised as cruelty can no longer be corrected in the world of the living. That moment reveals the truth of Sanemi more clearly than any speech could. Beneath the rage is grief. Beneath the violence is love. Beneath the hatred of demons is a boy who lost his mother, lost his siblings, and then lost the brother he wanted to save most. His anger was never empty. It was the shape his sorrow took when there was nowhere else for it to go. Sanemi. Shinazugawa's story is not gentle, but it is deeply human. He is not the kind of protector who comforts people with warm words. He protects like a storm, by placing himself between danger and the people he cannot bear to lose, even if they never understand why. As the wind Hashira, he is restless, cutting, and scarred by everything that has passed through him. But wind, even when violent, can also clear the air. And Sanemi's life, painful as it is, shows that even the harshest person may be carrying a love too wounded to speak softly. Gyomei Himejima is introduced with tears on his face and prayer beads in his hands, which makes his presence feel unusual from the beginning. He is the stone Hashira, the strongest of the pillars, yet he does not enter the story with pride or violence. He enters with sorrow. His massive body makes him look almost impossible to move, but his voice, his tears, and his constant prayers suggest someone deeply sensitive to suffering. That contrast is the first thing that makes him interesting. Gyomei is terrifyingly strong, but he is not hardened in the way people might expect. As the stone Hashira, Gyomei represents endurance more than aggression. Stone does not flicker like flame or drift like mist. It stands, carries weight, and remains under pressure. That is exactly what Gyomei becomes for the Demon Slayer course. He is not flashy. He does not seek attention. He simply holds the line when the battle becomes too heavy for anyone else. His strength feels ancient and grounded, like something built through pain, discipline, and faith. Before joining the Corps, Gyomei lived a peaceful life, caring for orphaned children at a temple. This part of his past matters because it shows that he was not born wanting to be a warrior. He was a protector before he ever held a weapon. His life was built around sheltering children, giving them food, guidance, and safety. In another world, that might have been his entire story. He could have remained a quiet caretaker, remembered only by the children who grew up under his protection. But demons do not allow peaceful lives to remain untouched. One night, a demon attacks the temple after the protection around it is broken. The children are slaughtered, and Gyomei is forced into a nightmare he was never trained for. With no sword, no breathing style, and no formal combat experience, he fights the demon with his bare hands until sunrise. It is one of the most haunting pieces of his backstory because it reveals what was hidden inside him. His strength was always there, but it only awakened when there was nothing left except the need to protect. The tragedy becomes even worse afterward. Gyomei survives, but because the scene is so brutal, he is blamed for the deaths of the children. The one surviving child is too frightened to explain clearly what happened, and her words are misunderstood. So Gyomei, who fought desperately to save them, is treated like the killer. This false accusation leaves a deep wound in him. He loses the children, loses his peaceful life, and loses the comfort of being understood. Kagaya Ubuyashiki eventually saves him and brings him into the demon slayer corpse, giving his strength a place to belong. From that point on, Gyomei's life becomes one of service. He does not fight for excitement or revenge in a loud way. He fights because he knows exactly what happens when the weak are left unprotected. His sorrow becomes discipline. His grief becomes prayer. His body becomes a wall between demons and everyone who cannot defend themselves. His weapon is one of the most unique among the Hashira. Instead of a traditional Nichiren sword, Gyomei uses a chained axe and flail. It feels heavy, strange, and almost ceremonial, but it fits him perfectly. Because he is blind, the sound and movement of the chain help him understand the battlefield. His weapon does not just show strength, it shows adaptation. Gyomei has built a fighting style around the way he experiences the world, turning what others might see as a limitation into something terrifyingly effective. His blindness is never treated as weakness. If anything, it makes his perception feel sharper. He senses movement, presence, and intent with incredible clarity. In battle, he seems to understand things that others miss, almost as if his lack of ordinary sight has forced him to see the world in a deeper way. That makes his power feel spiritual as much as physical. Gyomei does not simply swing a weapon. He listens, feels, and reads the battlefield with complete focus. His trauma also affects the way he sees children. Because of what happened at the temple, he struggles to trust them completely, not because he hates them, but because fear once twisted the truth and destroyed his life. This is a painful detail. Gyomei was once a caretaker of children, and yet the worst moment of his life left him cautious around the very innocence he used to protect. His heart is still gentle, but it is no longer untouched. During Hashira training, Gyomei's methods are severe. He pushes the younger slayers through intense endurance training, forcing them to strengthen their bodies and minds. But unlike Sanemi's harshness, Gyomei's training feels almost monk-like It is not cruelty. It is preparation. He knows that Muzan and the upper-rank demons will not spare anyone because they are young, tired, or afraid. If the slayers are not ready, they will die. His battle against Kokushibo shows why he is considered the strongest Hashira. Kokushibo is not just another demon. He is upper rank 1, a warrior with centuries of experience and a terrifying connection to the origins of breathing styles. Against him, even elite fighters seem fragile. But when Gyomei enters the fight, the entire battle feels different. He does not make Kokushibo seem weak, but he makes resistance feel possible. Fighting beside Sanemi, Muichiro, and Genya, Gyomei becomes the steady center of one of the most brutal battles in the story. Sanemi fights like a storm, wild and relentless, while Gyomei fights like the earth itself, heavy, focused, and unshaken. Their teamwork shows two different kinds of strength meeting in the same desperate moment. Sanemi burns with rage. Gyomei carries grief with solemn control. Together, they help push back something ancient. What makes Gyomei so powerful as a character is that his strength never erases his sadness. He does not become great by becoming cold. He remains emotional, prayerful, and compassionate, even while standing as the strongest pillar in the core. His tears are not weakness. They are proof that he still feels the weight of every life, every death, and every prayer that could not save someone in time. Gyomei Himejima's story is about a gentle man forced into violence by a cruel world, and somehow remaining gentle anyway. He begins as a caretaker, becomes a condemned survivor, and rises into the strongest Hashira without losing the sorrow that made him human. He is stone, but not empty stone. He is stone that remembers every crack, every loss, and every life it was asked to hold. The Hashira Training Arc changes the feeling of the story because, for the first time, the pillars are not only distant legends or emergency protectors. They become teachers, obstacles, and examples of what the younger demon slayers must become if they want any chance of surviving the final battle. Until this point, most ordinary slayers have seen the Hashira from below, as unreachable figures who appear when the danger is already too great. But now, with Muzan's forces closing in, and Nezuko becoming something neither demon nor human history has fully prepared for, the core has to change quickly. The gap between the strongest and everyone else has to shrink, even if only a little. This training is not gentle, because the world waiting for them will not be gentle. The Demon Slayer Corps is preparing for the kind of war where ordinary courage will not be enough, where even talented swordsmen can die in seconds, and where hesitation might allow Muzan to escape for another 1,000 years. The Hashira understand this more clearly than anyone. They have all faced demons powerful enough to make normal skill feel meaningless. They know that the younger slayers do not need encouragement alone. They need bodies that can keep moving after exhaustion, lungs that can hold breathing techniques under pressure, and minds that do not shatter when the battlefield turns hopeless. Each Hashira's training reflects who they are. Tengen Uzui, retired from active Hashira duty, but still full of presence, handles stamina training, pushing the slayers to move, run, and endure until their bodies begin to understand exhaustion differently. It suits him well. Tengen survived the entertainment district battle by continuing to fight through poison, injury, and the loss of an eye and arm. His lesson is not only about speed or physical conditioning. It is about learning that the body often wants to quit long before the mission allows it to. Muichiro Tokito's training focuses on quick movement, and there is something fitting about that. Mist breathing depends on speed, confusion, and the ability to vanish from an enemy's expectations. Muichiro, who once seemed emotionally distant and half lost in his own fog, now becomes someone others must chase, follow, and learn from. His training is difficult because it asks the slayers to sharpen their reactions, to stop moving like ordinary fighters, and begin moving like people who might actually survive a demon's attack. Mitsuri Kanroji's flexibility training feels lighter on the surface, but it is brutal in its own way. Mitsuri's body is extraordinary, and her fighting style depends on movement that most people cannot imitate easily. Her training reminds the slayers that strength is not only in hard muscles or powerful strikes. Sometimes survival depends on looseness, range, and the ability to move through strange angles without breaking. Coming from Mitsuri, even painful training carries warmth, because she does not teach by crushing people emotionally. She pushes them while still wanting them to succeed. Obanai Iguro's sword skill training is far less warm. His methods are strict, narrow, and punishing, much like the serpent Hashira himself. He forces slayers to control their blades precisely, to move through tight spaces, to avoid careless strikes, and to understand that sloppy swordsmanship is not just embarrassing, but deadly. Obanai's entire life has been shaped by confinement, restriction, and survival through narrow openings, so his training naturally carries that feeling. He teaches them to fight when there is no room for waste. Sanemi Shinazugawa's training is even harsher, focused on relentless attack and endurance against pressure. Sanemi does not soften his lessons. He does not make them pleasant. To him, demons will not care about fairness, and the body must be taught to withstand violence before the real battle begins. His training feels cruel because Sanemi himself often feels cruel. But beneath it is the same wounded urgency that defines him. He has lost too much to let weakness pass politely. Gyomei Himejima's training is perhaps the most severe in a spiritual sense. His endurance training pushes the slayers beyond comfort, asking them to hold, carry, and withstand far more than they think they can. But Gyomei's severity is not angry. It feels almost sacred. He knows the body can become stronger through suffering, but he also knows suffering without purpose can destroy a person. His training teaches discipline, patience, and the quiet strength of continuing when there is no dramatic moment to carry you forward. What makes this arc important is not only the training itself, but the way it brings the core together. The Demon Slayer core has always been connected by purpose, but now that purpose becomes more visible. Slayers move from Hashira to Hashira, learning pieces of what each pillar has spent years becoming. They cannot become Hashira overnight, but they can inherit fragments of their strength. Tengen's endurance, Muichiro's speed, Mitsuri's flexibility, Obanai's precision, Sanemi's aggression, Gyomei's discipline. The pillars are no longer only standing above the core. They are passing themselves downward into it. Tanjiro's presence also changes the training. He has a way of reaching people who are difficult to reach, not through clever speeches, but through persistence and sincerity. With Giyu, this matters deeply. Giyu still carries the old wound of Sabito's death and still struggles to fully accept his place among the Hashira. He believes, quietly and painfully, that he does not belong with them. Tanjiro's insistence forces him to face something he has avoided for years. It does not erase the guilt, but it helps Giyu begin moving again. This matters because the Hashira are not only training the lower ranks. Some of them are still confronting themselves. The final battle is approaching, and each pillar is carrying unfinished pain into it. Giyu carries survivor's guilt. Sanemi carries the broken bond with Genya. Obanai carries shame and longing. Mitsuri carries the hope of being loved as herself. Gyomei carries the memory of children he could not save. Muichiro carries the recovered grief of his brother. Shinobu carries revenge sharpened into a plan. Even Tengen, from the edge of retirement, carries the knowledge that others will go where he no longer can. Above all of them is Kagaya Ubuyashiki, the master of the core, whose body is slowly failing under the curse of his bloodline. His presence is quiet, but it holds the organization together. The Hashira respect him not because he is physically strong, but because he sees them clearly. He treats them not as weapons, but as people. And in a world where so many of them were shaped by being used, discarded, or misunderstood, that kind of recognition matters more than it first appears. The calm before the final battle does not feel truly calm. It feels like a deep breath held too long. Everyone is preparing, but preparation also means admitting that the thing they fear is near. The Hashira sharpen their students, their bodies, and their own resolve, knowing that the next time Muzan moves, there may be no retreat, no second chance, and no safe dawn waiting unless they create it themselves. And that is what makes the Hashira Training Arc more than a pause between battles. It is the last gathering of the pillars before the night breaks open. For a brief time, they are not only warriors rushing toward death. They are teachers, comrades, and survivors trying to pass on everything they can before the final darkness arrives. The final battle begins not with a simple charge, but with a trap built from sacrifice. Kagaya Ubuyashiki has always seemed fragile, almost too gentle to stand at the center of a war against demons. But his quietness hides a terrifying resolve. By the time Muzan comes to him, Kagaya's body is already collapsing under the curse of his bloodline, and yet his mind remains steady. He knows he cannot defeat Muzan with a sword. He cannot chase him through the night. So instead, he turns his own home, his own body, and even his final moments into the opening move. This is one of the darkest and most powerful parts of Kagaya's role. He does not view himself as separate from the core. He is not a commander sending others to die from a safe distance. He is part of the same long sacrifice. When the explosion tears through the Ubuyashiki estate, it is not only an attack. It is a message to Muzan that the human beings he has dismissed for centuries are willing to do what demons cannot truly understand. They are willing to give up their lives for something beyond themselves. For the Hashira, this moment changes everything. Their master is gone, and the final hunt begins immediately. Muzan is wounded, but not destroyed, and the core is thrown into the Infinity Castle, a shifting nightmare of impossible rooms, endless drops, and distorted space. The battlefield itself feels like a demon, because there is no stable ground, no ordinary path forward, and no clear way out. The Hashira are separated, scattered into battles that feel almost designed to expose the deepest parts of them. Shinobu Kocho's confrontation with Doma is one of the first great tragedies inside the castle. Doma is the demon who killed her sister, Kanai, and he is almost the perfect opposite of Shinobu. She is full of feeling beneath a calm surface, while Doma speaks cheerfully while feeling almost nothing. His emptiness makes him horrifying. He smiles, compliments, and speaks gently, but there is no true warmth behind it. Against someone like him, Shinobu's anger feels painfully human. She knows she cannot overpower him. She knows her body is not strong enough to cut off his head. So she enters the battle already carrying a plan that requires her death. By filling her own body with wisteria poison over time, she turns herself into the weapon. When Doma absorbs her, believing he has won, he takes the poison into himself. It is a chilling kind of victory, because Shinobu does not survive to see it completed. Her revenge is delayed, hidden inside the very body that Doma thought he had consumed. Kanao and Inosuke finish what Shinobu began, and that matters. Shinobu's death is not meaningless because she trusted others to carry the final strike. Kanao, the girl Shinobu helped raise and guide, stands there as proof that Shinobu left more behind than poison. She left training, love, memory, and a path for someone else to walk. Inosuke, too, is pulled into the emotional weight of the battle when he learns of Doma's connection to his mother. The fight becomes a gathering of old griefs, all converging on a demon who treated human suffering like passing entertainment. Elsewhere in the castle, Zenitsu faces Kaigaku. And while Zenitsu is not a Hashira, The fight belongs to the larger story of inherited styles and broken bonds. Kaigaku trained under the same master, but where Zenitsu struggled with fear and insecurity, Kaigaku carried pride and resentment. His transformation into a demon is a betrayal, not just of the core, but of the person who taught them both. Zenitsu's victory shows how far he has come, but it also carries sadness, because sometimes strength means facing someone who came from the same place and chose the opposite path. Then comes the battle against Kokushibo, one of the most important fights in the entire story of the Hashira. Kokushibo is upper rank 1, but he is also Michikatsu Tsugikuni, the twin brother of Yoriichi, the greatest demon slayer who ever lived. This makes him more than a powerful enemy. He is a living monument to jealousy, ambition, and the fear of being second. His existence reaches back into the origins of breathing styles, making the battle feel like the past itself has returned with a blade. Muichiro faces him first, and the connection is quietly devastating because Muichiro is Kokushibo's descendant. The young mist Hashira, who only recently recovered the full truth of his own memories, now stands before an ancestor who abandoned his humanity. Their blood connects them, but their choices separate them. Muichiro is young, brief, and human. Kokushibo is ancient, preserved, and hollowed out by the desire to keep surpassing death. Sanemi, Genya, and Gyomei enter the fight, and together they create one of the clearest pictures of what the Hashira represent. Muichiro brings talent and recovered purpose. Sanemi brings rage and endurance. Gyomei brings grounded, almost sacred strength. Genya brings desperation, loyalty, and the need to stand beside his brother before it is too late. Against Kokushibo, none of them alone is enough. The fight demands everything from all of them. Muichiro's sacrifice is especially painful because he is still so young. His life has only just begun to return to him, and yet he spends it in the final battle with complete resolve. He helps create the opening that makes victory possible, even as his own body is destroyed. There is no fairness in it, and that is part of the sadness. Demon Slayer never pretends that courage guarantees a long life. Sometimes, courage only means making the short life matter. Genya's death breaks Sanemi in a different way. Sanemi spent so long trying to push his brother away from the core, hoping cruelty would keep him safe. But Genya followed anyway. In his final moments, Genya does not hate him. He wants forgiveness, closeness, and brotherhood. Sanemi, who has survived by turning love into distance, is finally forced to feel the full cost of that distance. The brother he wanted to protect dies in front of him, and all the words he could not say arrive too late. Kokushibo's defeat is not triumphant in a simple way. It is grotesque, sorrowful, and strangely empty. He pursued endless strength, gave up his humanity, and lived for centuries, only to be confronted by the ugliness of what he became. His fear of being less than Yoriichi turned him into something far smaller than the brother he envied. In the end, he does not look like a perfected warrior. He looks like a man who lost himself chasing a shadow. By the time these battles end, the Hashira have already paid a terrible price. Shinobu is gone. Muichiro is gone. Genya is gone. Sanemi and Gyomei are wounded. The core has won pieces of the night. But every victory has taken something irreplaceable. And still, Muzan remains. That is what makes the Infinity Castle feel so heavy. It is not only a battlefield. It is a place where every hidden wound is pulled into the open, where every Hashira is forced to spend the strength they spent years building. The demons fall one by one, but the cost keeps rising, and the story moves closer to the final confrontation with the one being at the center of all this suffering. The first demon, the source of every broken family, every ruined life, and every pillar that had to become strong enough to stand against him. Muzan Kibutsuji's final battle does not feel like a clean duel. It feels like a disaster being held in place until sunrise. By this point, the elegant shape of battle has almost disappeared. The demon slayers are exhausted, wounded, poisoned, bleeding, and barely standing. But they keep moving, because victory no longer means defeating Muzan with perfect technique. Victory means keeping him there for one more second, and then another, until the sun arrives. Muzan is different from the upper-rank demons, because there is very little tragedy left in him. Many demons carry fragments of their human pain, but Muzan has spent centuries running from one simple truth. He is afraid to die. His cruelty, his experiments, his control over other demons, and his obsession with Nezuko all come back to survival. He wants eternity, not because he has something meaningful to do with it, but because the thought of ending terrifies him. That makes the final fight strangely ugly. Muzan does not fall with grace. He does not accept defeat with dignity. He thrashes, mutates, lashes out, and tries to escape. Beneath the elegant disguises and calm voice, the first demon is revealed as something small inside, a creature desperate to keep living at any cost. The Hashira enter this battle already carrying unbearable losses. Rengoku is gone. Shinobu is gone. Muichiro is gone. Genya is gone. Tengen can no longer fight on the front line. Gyomei and Sanemi are badly wounded. Mitsuri and Obanai are pushed far beyond their limits. Giyu is exhausted, but still standing beside Tanjiro. By now, the core is not winning, because anyone is untouched. They are winning because no one will let the others fall alone. Tamayo's poison becomes one of the quiet keys to Muzan's downfall. For centuries, Muzan treated people as tools, but in the end, one of the demons he created helps destroy him. Her medicine ages him, weakens him, slows him, and traps him inside the one thing he feared most: time. It is fitting that Muzan is not defeated by strength alone. He is defeated by every life he underestimated. Giyu's role in the fight carries the weight of his entire journey. He began the story ready to kill Nezuko, believing that a demon could only be a threat. Now he fights beside Tanjiro, trusting the impossible bond between brother and sister. Giyu has spent years feeling unworthy of being the water Hashira, haunted by Sabito's death. But in this final battle, he stands exactly where he needs to be. He may not forgive himself completely, but he keeps fighting. And sometimes, that is the only way forward. Sanemi fights like a man who has lost almost everything and still refuses to stop. Genya's death leaves a wound that cannot be repaired. But Sanemi carries it into battle anyway. His anger, which once made him seem cruel, becomes one more force pushing him forward. He is not fighting because he is unhurt. He is fighting because the people he loved can no longer fight beside him. Gyomei remains the strongest pillar until the end, not only because of his body, but because of his spirit. He knows the cost of the Demon Slayer mark. He knows his life may already be near its end. Still, he stands like stone, wounded and prayerful, holding back the night with everything left in him. His strength is not cold. It is full of grief, faith, and duty. Mitsuri and Obanai bring the final battle its most tender sadness. Mitsuri fights with the same open heart that once made her feel out of place. Obanai fights while carrying a lifetime of shame, finally allowing himself to imagine a future where he might be loved without feeling stained by his past. Their final moments are not about glory. They are about the simple wish to meet again in a kinder life. Tanjiro remains at the center of it all, not because he is the strongest, but because he keeps carrying the memory of everyone who helped him reach this point. His family, Rengoku, Shinobu, Muichiro, Genya, the Hashira, the core, Nezuko. All of them are part of why he keeps moving. Muzan tries to reduce life to survival. But Tanjiro's life has always been shaped by connection. When the sun finally rises, Muzan's defeat feels less like a grand victory and more like a release. The long night is over. The demon who created so much suffering is gone. But the peace that follows is not clean. The dead do not return. The scars do not vanish. The Hashira, who gave everything, are remembered through the world they made possible. That is what the Hashira were. Not perfect heroes, not untouchable legends, but people who became pillars because others needed something to lean on. Rengoku burned brightly. Shinobu turned grief into poison. Tengen chose life after being raised as a tool. Muichiro found himself again inside the mist. Mitsuri made love into strength. Obanai fought for a world he felt unworthy of. Sanemi loved through anger. Gyomei stood through sorrow. Giyu kept moving until he finally began to believe he belonged. And when dawn comes, it carries all of them with it. The story does not end because the pain disappears. It ends because, for the first time in generations, the sun rises on a world where children no longer have to fear the demons waiting in the dark.